Leadership in a world gone digital. It is a phenomenal, explosive time. The most interesting time I've seen in like more than 25 years. Fantastic. And there's a number of things that are going on. There are some huge changes in how people buy, how people sell, how the world of marketing is done. Here are the 6 hot zones from my perspective. Search marketing was what we always wished for, but now, when people search, they give you the answer of what they're interested in. They tell you, car, Audi S5 Cabriolet. They tell you the answer of what they're interested in. It's a phenomenally powerful thing. And Google, Bing, and others have made it a spectacular 30 billion plus business. Social media is profoundly changing how marketing is done. And people think, you know, it's a fluffy little Facebook thing and it's Evite and it's a few, no, it's not. It is changing how buying and selling is happening. So when we look at LinkedIn, when we look at relationship between blogs and selling, even in business to business, if you use social media right, you can create leads, you can nurture leads, you can do things that were impossible to do at scale before. Huge hot zone. In the digital space, video is phenomenal. YouTube is not only 4 gazillion hours of consumer-generated content, it's actually also the 2nd biggest search engine in the world. Bigger than Bing, because people consume video content. So the advertising part of the web is going to video fast, 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 super hot, growing well. Everybody's talked about the future being mobile, more smartphones and television sets in the world. We're just at the cusp of having it interesting, and it really happened. I think iPhone transformed it, because up until then, the application side of phones were so clunky. Only a few real geeks knew how to use their phones. Now almost all humans know how to use them. In emerging markets, obviously, mobile is leapfrogging a lot of the other infrastructure, so mobile is huge. We're just seeing the beginning of it, but it's by far the next big wave. E-commerce I find extremely interesting. We're starting in our own company, starting to buy e-commerce companies. It is a profound new way. Everybody knows Zappos? All the women say yes. How many guys know Zappos? A couple, okay. It's a phenomenal online commerce social experience. Great place to buy shoes, among other things. But e-commerce is a great hot zone. And when we talk about careers, I'll urge you to think about that. Gaming, which is where marketing meets behavior economics. The gamification of marketing, it's phenomenal what is happening. And again, we're at the cusp of this. All of people in this room, especially the guys, have grown up with incredible gaming instincts, being a big part of leisure, and now we're applying it to marketing, and it's getting hot. So I won't take it, you can read lots of articles and all the trends and all the data on that. Those to me are the big 6. Those are the drivers. And the first thing that they drive is that marketers need a different mindset to cope with this. So an entire 2 generations of marketers have grown up with, what's the magic formula for marketing? It's the 4 Ps. When were the 4 Ps invented? 1960. By Jerome McCarthy, later popularized by Philip Kotler. Hey, it's been a good 50 years, but they were built for like the P&G world that I grew up in, the very beginning of my career. They are no longer relevant in the same way. They need to be pretty fundamentally evolved. And one of the things I counsel all of our clients on who are trying to cope with these incredible changes, and many of the CMOs of the world didn't grow up in the digital world, they grew up in a different one. You have to evolve from the 4 Ps of product, place, price, and promotion to what I refer to as the 4 Es. Product has to become experience. And place, the distribution one, needs to become every place. And price needs to become exchange. And promotion needs to become evangelism. And the fundamental reason for this is not to do with those 6 little technology changes. It's that the consumer has seized control. The technology-enabled consumer has seized control. This doesn't work anymore, and you have to move to here. So let me take you through some examples. You could rely on product as a source of differentiation in a different world. When I worked at P&G, you could invent a new product. It'll last for a 1.5 or 2 years. Competitive advantage, 3 years sometimes, before you needed to introduce the new improved Tide or whatever it was. How long does a product advantage last in financial services? You know, my mortgage rate or my product or whatever, like a week. About the time it takes it to get through the lawyers. So your product advantage framework is like weeks or days or hours, not years. You need something that's more enduring. You need something that's fuller. And the area to look at is branded experiences. And we know this when we look at some of the examples. This is a great experience company. Do they have the best gizmos inside? Is it better than Samsung? No. Their experience from end to end is better. And that's what makes Apple phenomenally successful. They got the products and the user interface. They had the retail experience phenomenally good. Installation, service is okay. It's still probably their weak spot. Genius Bar starting to bring their high-end service and application side up. These guys really get it, and it's linked in with iTunes, which makes it sticky. Once again, they have a lasting advantage. It's not fundamentally product, the stuff inside. It is how they put it together. And that's a huge lesson for marketers in the digital world. Here's some stuff that we did for Louis Vuitton. When you're selling They're so excited. Why is he doing that? Oh, it was lurking underneath. Okay. Back one. So Louis Vuitton, they're selling $2,500. This just begs to go on. $2,500 handbags. Is there any product that's possibly worth that? It's an experience. They sell you an entire experience. And so what we did with Louis Vuitton, we came up with a big brand idea, which was around Louis Vuitton celebrates interesting people and the interesting journeys that they pursue. That's a big brand level idea. And that's just a part of it. The photo that doesn't want to keep going is on people who've been into space. And so it celebrates them in their advertising and people who've done interesting journeys along the way. It also celebrates people who've had interesting journeys. This is Keith Richards. I think he's great for Louis Vuitton because his face looks like luggage. You know, some journeys cannot be put into words. So this is a brand level idea. Hey, what's going on? There's an emotional connection, but that's not enough to make it a full experience. So what we've done is to pull it right into an e-commerce experience. We have a complete website. This is a social fashion show that you can see on louisvuitton.com. And it's also linked in. You can comment on Twitter. You know, that, you know, looks lousy on her, fashion police, all that kind of stuff. But we're starting to build a richer, fuller experience. These are fashion shows you can only see online. Some of them are on Twitter and Facebook, and some of them are on louisvuitton.com. But it goes right into the e-commerce experience. And again, all of the navigation is built on this notion of a journey, again, from end to end. It goes right into mobile, 3D rendering of the products. Becomes a really experiential way of marketing. This is the dashboard. We're just going to talk more about marketing accountability and stuff. So right from the beginning, this is from 4 years now, we've got incredible real-time data on every click that goes into the digital experience that we can learn and move from. And now I'm going to show you, this is some concept work, and if you're asked about it, you'll have to be put to death. This is something that some concepts we're working on with Louis Vuitton that takes their existing handbag and really does make it an experience. And basically how it works is you take your mobile phone, you put it inside the handbag, and the exterior fabric is not made from traditional fabric. It's made from ultra-thin LED screens. It's like a super, super flexible and thin TV screen. And this is some of the stuff that you can do with it. So when you have that in your normal handbag, you can take a picture of your own outfit. It suggests a palette of matching things, sends a signal to your handbag, and the screen changes in color. That's pretty hot. What about if on your mobile on weather.com it's raining, your handbag shows rain? What if it's snowing? It snows. Isn't that cool? So this is why I don't get bored. So this is just an interesting way, again, of creating experiences, not just products, because now that you're pushing into experience, and the last one, what if your Twitter feed or your Facebook page was dynamically shown on the exterior of the bag? Remember, these are for people who want to go to Fashion Week and show off, not for your average person. But isn't that an interesting way of creating an experience that goes beyond the product? Second one is place, which was the traditional distribution channels. And that was in a lot of times like you do stuff on TV and you send them to a store. God, was that a reason? But now, of course, it's this incredible richness of choices and like an overwhelming number of ingredients. It's like how chefs must have felt in the 16th century when some ship came over from India or China with like 175 new ingredients, and people, make me some stuff with that saffron and garlic and all this stuff. So this is our new list of ingredients. It used to be television, newspaper, bit of radio, and this is just the beginning of what we have. And so it forces you to really think more broadly about not what channels you want, but the channels. Every place is defined by the journey that the consumer takes. Where do they want to go? And so here's something we just did for Coke in Brazil. Coke has a big brand idea, which is about open happiness. It's all about happiness. And they have some television commercials, and they have some other stuff. This is a happiness machine where you refill your mobile device. You can get it juiced up. You can get minutes and data. And you just go there, and you plug it in, and you get, it's like you're getting joy refilled into your life. And I just think it's a great example of how you need to think now as a marketer, not what you want to do, but what your consumers want to do along their journey. And that, I think, is Joe Tripodi going to come? Joe Tripodi from Coke?
No, he's next year.
Next year. But I think Coke is doing some really interesting stuff now with ubiquity and how do you get everywhere. I beg your pardon?
Do they charge for that?
No, that's free. Yep. Tremendous examples from IBM. And you may be familiar with their Smarter Planet initiative. Let's build a smarter planet together. And it's a big platform for selling software and services and some hardware to business audiences. And one time along the way, they had a new product developed, which was a very mundane kind of product. It was some super fast computer servers and some analytical software. Snooze. But what if you discovered what it actually did? It was fantastic at solving complex, ambiguous problems very quickly. One of the most complex, ambiguous problems is human language. When I say the word bat, which one do I mean? Do I mean this? Do I mean bat my eyelash? Do I mean one of these? When I say the word run, do I mean this one? Do I mean a run in baseball? A run on the bank? A run in a stocking? We as humans, we're actually surprisingly smart. We actually kind of figure it out. If I give you enough context before and after, you can figure out which run I mean. Computers find it really hard. So in 1997, IBM developed a computer called Deep Blue that was successful in beating the world's chess champion at the time, Garry Kasparov. And that was like easy peasy. Why? Fixed number of choices, 64 squares, fixed number of moves. That was pretty impressive for 1997, but could never crack human language. So we took this thing, we gave it a name, we gave it the name of Watson, which sounds sort of geeky and is also a nod to the founder of IBM. And we put Watson in a competition that would test how good it was at solving complex, ambiguous things, and we put it into Jeopardy. Jeopardy is word puzzles, puns, all the tricks that are really hard for computers to figure out. And so we actually created this event. We bought 3 nights of Jeopardy, 1-hour chunks. We put 12 minutes of advertising over the course of the 3 nights. Created a whole program and pitted this Watson against former champions, including one guy, Ken Jennings, that won 63 consecutive games or something like that. So again, don't just make it a boring, average story. Bring it to life in a different way. And what's particularly impressive about this is how IBM chose every medium, every channel to tell the story. We handpick them according to what they're great at. It started out with, this is an ad from the Wall Street Journal, "Let's go humans." Because at the beginning, they didn't want to make it a man versus machine, because then, you'd want the machine to die. You wanted, hey, if Watson wins, it's good for humanity, because we'll solve some cool problems. And if the former champions win, that's okay too. We'll keep working at it. And used paid advertising in the Wall Street Journal to bring across that message, carefully choosing the positioning and the words. We used digital advertising. It was changing every day in the pre-warm-up, because Watson, the machine, everybody thought he'd win all the time. He didn't win all the time. 71%? So almost 30% of the time, Watson lost, just to create some tension and drama and a bit of the story. That's Ken Jennings. That's the avatar that we used for Watson. We built a big microsite, tell a whole story. Where did he come from? Who built it? Why has it got a man's voice, not a woman's voice, et cetera, et cetera. We wrote a book. We commissioned a book. Why on earth would you commission a book? There's one thing about a book. It gives scientific gravitas to the topic. And this needed scientific gravitas to offset the fact it's a game show. And this is like serious science. So again, hand-selected, write a book. Also used YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn to create social buzz. Set up events. People wondered aloud, I wonder if we could invite some of our employees to watch this TV show Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night. Would anybody show up? And the employee said, yeah, we'd like to see Watson, our guy, and kind of root for him. And then I said, I wonder if some of our clients would show up. And then I wonder if, and they actually ended up getting 14,000 people, students, and they got beer and pizza, so it was a pretty good offer. 14,000 people. They were shocked at how many people actually wanted to watch this epic battle. We did trigger-driven demand generation. This is like lead generation activities. So while this is going on TV, there's banner ads and emails going out to customers and prospects going, would you like a little bit of Watson in your company? How's it going? Here's the result story. So the beginning is we paid for those 3 nights and some television commercials on Watson. And we got an audience of 34.5 million viewers, which was great. Best in 5 years. And if we'd stopped there, old world thinking, we'd pack up and go, I was okay, I guess. But what happened was Nova, PBS, did a 60-minute show at no cost to IBM to promote the Watson story. Jay Leno invited Watson on as a guest. Conan poked fun at him 3 nights in a row. Jon Stewart invited him on and did a funny skit about him. YouTube, 1 million views. Facebook, etc. Number 3. Here's the number. 1.3 billion earned or unpaid impressions of Watson were created. That's the phenomenal thing about this story. You wouldn't hear these stories 5 years ago. That's the environment that you're going into. And it goes beyond that. Awareness, engagement, and the number of hits to the Watson.com. Search rankings for IBM went up. Leads, for sales leads, you want to get some Watson in your company, all the way to the real thing that a marketer's looking for, which is money. Did it show up in real money? So they got $50 million worth of free public relations. Wow. We did not spend $50 million. $260 million in new sales leads for IBM services and products. And they've already closed of that number. This is now well over 50 million. So 50 million bucks savings and 50 million bucks. So phenomenal success, thinking through the whole thing and using the power of every place, not just TV in a store. So I think it's a terrific example of what's going on. Third one is from price to exchange. And again, the old world, you calculate your cost of goods sold. You say your product or service is going to cost 10 bucks. You slap a price on it, put it out there, and either you buy it or you don't. Now what's amazing to me is the new style of give to get. This notion of exchange that smart marketers are using. If you will give people something, you will get back that and much more. It's not just a transaction based on price. So here's an example from Lego, the Danish toy manufacturer, where traditionally, every year before their holiday season, they'd go into the research and development lab and say, build me some new stuff. Okay, right, so they'll build a train or they'll build a whatever, some new toy. And one year they went onto their website and said, hey, all you people who love Lego, will you help us design a new product, a new train? We would like you to give us hundreds of hours of your time for free. Except whatever we design, we'll give you first crack at it. We'll give you early access to this collectible train. So what people did for no money, they put thousands and thousands of hours into designing what was the Santa Fe train, which outsold their average new product by 200%. So again, if you get these connections right, people will pay money. Here's just a charming little example of what kind of things you can exchange. In this case, you can exchange a smile for money. People will give you money for a smile. And here's how it works. This is an organization based in the Netherlands that supports women and children in Africa, high risk to AIDS. And the babies in particular are, horribly affected themselves and their parents. And the whole notion was we actually created this very low-tech TV set that showed a crying baby and a happy baby, and it's got a little slot at the top that says, put your euros in here. Here's what happened. So that's exchange. That's, crude, primitive, old world marketers slap a price on it, go, do you want to buy it or not? You need to develop skills of how to create exchanges with your consumers that they find rewarding and satisfying. I think that's a really charming one. Does anybody know the company Warby Parker? A few people? I think they're phenomenal. I just met the founders recently. So this is an online eyewear company based on some beliefs like really good glasses should not cost 500 bucks. People should be able to buy things online, including eyewear. And if you get it right, if you do a little bit of this give to get, you're going to be phenomenally successful. So they have this company. They decided to price them, basic price point of $95. It goes up to about 140. And you get to choose them. You get to see what you like. And it's backed by world-class customer service. So you can put online, you can take your face and put different glasses on. You can have Facebook rankings among your friends. Do I look like a dork? Do I look like a genius? Et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's really, really smart. And they have the exchange part of this is they are so confident that if you choose 5 pairs of glasses, they will send them to you for free, no strings attached, and you can look at them for 5 days. Most conventional marketers would never do that deal. They get what exchange is, and they have been phenomenally successful. The other great thing about this company, they understand the value. Let's say they're successful and profitable, and people are going to go, they're going to try and take them down, big success story. They found that if you give a person who has eyesight problems eyeglasses, their personal productivity, work productivity, school productivity, corrected vision goes up 20%. So for every pair, it's like Tom's shoes, for every pair they sell, they give away a pair of glasses. And they're going to Africa and other places, developing world, and giving out glasses. And every person they give them to, their personal productivity goes up 20%. What a big idea. So again, I think they're insulating their business model for the longer haul. Final one is from promotion. This intrusive, one-way marketer tells you what to do doesn't work anymore because the consumer, through DVRs, through filtering, spam filters, they will not let your message in if they don't want it. They'll go on search, they'll bypass you, they'll go on search and get the stuff they want. They'll go on YouTube and bypass you. So you need a different method, and the method I call evangelism, which is putting out an idea that's so interesting and beliefs that are so attractive that people will naturally be attracted to you and start to engage. You can't just beat them into oblivion. They'll run away. They'll shut you down. They will not invite you to their party. So you need a different approach. One of the famous examples is the Dove campaign for Real Beauty. Instead of going, "This is what beauty is," exclamation point, they said, "What do you think? What do you think beauty is?" Question mark. It was an unbelievably successful way of attracting people, getting them into the debate. This is a 96-year-old woman. This is in Times Square. Is she wrinkled or is she wonderful? And vote on your mobile. Very nice example of evangelism based on beliefs, not telling people the answer, asking them the answer. I have to tell what. How many people have? Enough already. How many people have seen the Dove evolution? Most people. I'm going to skip that one. Basically, it shows. This is what I want you to see, which is the evolution of a man. Ladies, eventually that's how all men turn out. I'm sorry.
That's the way it is.
That was just part of, again, this evangelical approach. Here's an interesting one. It's done by a sports company in Brazil. And everybody's concerned about parental controls. And so we actually developed a utility that lets you control the internet input, but it's only relating to sports. And this is done in sort of a Portuguese-English accent but it's very interesting. It's evangelical. If you want to play, you come along. Here's
Your son's most precious thing on earth. From very early on, you've got big plans for him. You do everything you can to guarantee he will have a great future. But then, one day, he goes to school and meets friends that will talk to him about things that are just not right. And just like that, you lose control. Not anymore, because Band Sports TV channel will help you. Meet Band Sports Parental Control, a free, easy-to-install browser app. You choose your team and the team you need to block. And voila! If your kid tries to look up some dirty content like the other team's winning goals, no worries. Band Sports Parental Control immediately filters all YouTube Sports content, so your kid sees only the results you want. The results of the block team, just defeat after defeat. Embarrassing, really. And the best of all, always losing to your team. By the way, what a team. Band Sports Parental Control. Because your kid doesn't want to be a loser. He wants to be a winner, like Daddy. Supporting the best team in the world. Your team.
So I thought that's kind of cute. And it, again, it's the new style, not beating them over the head, but seducing them and inviting them. I want to talk about you. So if you're in this class, you have some aspirations in business and in marketing. And just share some thoughts about career and what I've seen just in other people who have succeeded over the long haul and what's emerging. So take your pencils and paper up for a minute. So we're going to play career math. We have 5 incredibly challenging questions to begin with. First number, take 62 and deduct your current age. You can write it down. You don't have to share this. Question number 2, on average, what percentage of your personal wealth should you expect to accumulate after your 40th birthday? Question 3, how many hours does it take to become really excellent at something? And as a benchmark, many of you will know the Malcolm Gladwell book, Outliers. Question 4, what's the sum of your Facebook friends and LinkedIn contacts? You took those 2 numbers, roughly added them together. So let's go back. So this number that you wrote down is the number of years you have left until early retirement. And it's like, holy shit, is it ever a long time? Even I have a few miles left on the clock. And this is true. Most people do not finish their careers at 62. And whether it's in the same industry or type of work, whatever, point number 1, remember how long this journey is. And you're at the beginning of the beginning of the beginning. Point 1. Point 2. What percentage of your personal wealth do you accumulate after your 40th birthday? Any guesses?
70.
70?
60.
80? 60? 85?
90.
90? Jan?
Done.
Ilan is a wizard of career management, because that is correct. 90%. Let's review. People go, how can it be that big? Let's review. How many years of career do you have before your 40th birthday? Max 19, 18, 19, 17. How many years of career do you have after your 40th birthday? Minimum 22. Where are all the big ones? Second half. Compound value of money, all working for you in the second half. So most people miss this. All the money is in the second half. All the money is in the second half. Point 3, how many hours does it take to become really good at something? 10,000. And this is from Malcolm Gladwell and Outliers, and it's pretty it is anecdotal, but it's broadly based enough. And just from what I see in our own business, young people coming in, there's a day, and it could be 5 years, 8 years, 10, there's a day when you go, Arun asked a tough question as the CMO of Zurich, and I can hand it over to a person, and like 2 days before, it's like diaper training, like you couldn't do it, and then one day you can. There is a critical point in almost all endeavors, and it seems somewhere around 10,000. The relevance of that is, it takes a long time to become good at something. That's, what is that, 8 years? 7 years? Working at it? How many Facebook friends and LinkedIn contacts do you have? Jill? Jill Jew? How many do you have? Answer to question number 4, please. 250. Any others? 100? 500? 1,000? 1,000? Couple people with 1,000? So the relevance of that is to contrast it with people who, when they retire and they say, there are, a number of people who've influenced me along the way, and the really decisive ones, they name 3 people, 5 people. There's a book, I think, called The 5 People You Meet in Career Heaven. If not, I'm going to write it, because it's totally true. I have been working for like 30 years. I can name definitely on one, fingers of one hand, the 5 decisive individuals. The point is, do not confuse Facebook friends and LinkedIn contacts with the people who matter. Somebody, you might have one, if you're blessed, you might have 2 of these kinds of people already who propel you forward. They're like a tailwind of 10 or 15 miles on the back of, miles per hour on the back of your neck. Somebody recommended you to come here. Pay attention to those people. Tell them how you're doing. That's the exchange that they're looking. They don't care. They don't need money. You don't need to take care of them when they're old. They just want to know, hey, I'm doing the thing, and I'm doing some marketing, and I'm doing some finance and some business and stuff. But I encourage people, look for these kinds of individuals and nurture them, because they really, really matter. Who are your advocates and champions? They don't have to be the CEOs necessarily. It's nice if they're influential. But somebody who's promoting you behind your back, that's who matters, and don't confuse it with this bulk of acquaintances. It's a very, very select group. So the big point I'm making is, especially for you guys who are off to this phenomenal start, are just embarking, it's a really long journey. And most people think it's a sprint. Most people think it's a sprint to their 5th-year college reunion to drive a BMW 7 Series or a Porsche, and they miss the fact that it's a marathon. So I play hockey on Sunday nights, and I use this sort of as my barometer. A lot of guys, there's 30s, 40s. I'm the silver-haired senior, I think. The average unemployment rate on my hockey team is about 35%. Smart guys, well-educated, come to schools like this, whatever. Many of them sort of broke their price-value curve in their 40s. They're too expensive for what they bring. Go, bring me 2 25-year-olds. And they miss the fact, I think some of them miss the fact that they're sort of running out of gas as they're getting, to mile 20 of a 26-mile marathon. And so again, just encouraging people, remember, whatever that number is, that's still early retirement. And most people don't even retire at that age. Here is one thing I do fundamentally believe, and that big first chunk of your career. The idea is to end up in your early 40s with some great career choices. So if you want to run a not-for-profit, beautiful. Maybe you run a not-for-profit, or you want to start your own commercial business. Warby Parker 2.0. Or maybe you want to be a regional CEO of a consulting company. Or maybe you want to do something else. But it's the wonderful thing, people who do this well, they get on menus for choices. And usually late 30s, 40, 42. And if you're doing well, that's the thing. It's not to get to your 5th reunion in a luxury automobile. That's nice, that is not the game. That's the 1/16th mile pole, or whatever the hell it is. So, I believe there are 3 fundamental phases of a career. They're almost 15 years each in length. And the first one is really simple. Take on rocket fuel. And rocket fuel comes in 2 ways: transportable skills and meaningful experiences and relationships. That's it. So if you spend, people say, well, you know, the first job, and do I have to be? Doesn't matter. If you're getting transportable skills and meaningful relationships, that is rocket fuel. That's what's important. Certain companies are more blessed and giving to you and these kind of things, but that's what's important. So people, I could do a startup or I could go work for IBM. They're both valid, as long as you're getting transportable skills and meaningful relationships. Second big phase. After you're about 15 years in, if you suck at something, you're going to suck at it forever. Forget about it. Find what you're really good at, where your passions are, where your heart is, and where your skill sets are, and pour gasoline on the fire. And establish for yourself like a real world-class ambition. If you want to be a subject matter expert in behavioral economics, you go to be the best behavioral economist on the planet. You want to be a supply chain guy. You want to be the not-for-profit person who gets how to fix productivity in Africa. You go do whatever the heck it is. About this time, I discovered I was good at global. So I was in Canada running a domestic, you know, like 300 people in the company, pretty nice size, really fun, very enjoyable. And the knock came on the door, and I had to decide what I wanted to do. And I didn't, doing an international thing and going and running IBM and working in 30 countries and going to the head office was appealing but terrifying at the same time. And what I discovered in that next 3 to 5 year period, I was actually really good at global. So I don't speak Japanese, but I could get along with Japanese business executives pretty well, and go to India and go to the UK and Canada and so forth. So that whole phase is just differentiate, differentiate, differentiate. And then the final one, which can be quite a long period of time, is all about passing the torch. And I'm just entering this phase in my career. So the last 10, 15 years, I just, you know, global brand, communications, digital, that's what I poured gasoline on. And now I'm working on succession planning, passing on of tribal wisdom. Increasingly, I'm speaking to groups like this. One-to-one mentoring within my company, doing advisory stuff on boards for the industry and for individual companies. So it's just interesting to see the transition, but that to me is that big phase, and that could be a big phase in your life too. And a lot of people, they get to the end of phase 2, and boom, they don't have anything to fall back on. Some people, and they, you know, men especially, they, you know, get heart attacks. They don't know what to do with themselves. Work, 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 work. Another important notion, which I alluded to, is in all of this, and there are maybe 5 people who advocate for you, there's only one brand manager of your career brand, and that's you. It ain't your boss. In the last 20 years, I've had how many job descriptions? 0. 0. Have not had a job description. I guess I'm unaccountable? Nope. I guess I haven't known what to do? Nope. I wrote my titles and job descriptions at least 2 or 3 times in my life. Put my hand up to do this, turn this down, whatever it is. You need to really get in the driver's seat. Nobody else owes it to you. You need to do it. For the long haul, not for the short haul. This does not, don't confuse this with barking at your boss's office on Tuesday because Marina got promoted and Brad wants to get promoted. That's not the issue. But Brad goes, you know what? I'd like to work in an emerging market. Oh, that's interesting. I never knew that, Brad. I had this conversation with a 25-year-old consultant in our business the other day. He actually wants to work in an emerging market. Never knew. His bosses never knew. But he said, I just want to tell somebody. And we were working on a project together, so, well, talk to bosses. So I am virtually positive he will be in an emerging market by the end of this year. And if he didn't take that active management, nobody would have guessed it. His name is Tyler, and he wants to go to Buenos Aires. I wouldn't have connected those dots. The part of this long-term brand management thing, I'm just going to end up with a couple of thoughts on happiness. I did some work with the Sloan Business School at MIT. A woman was doing her master's thesis on executive happiness and talked to me and a bunch of other people. And part of the research was, this is what constitutes happiness. I'm going to show you a formula in a minute, too. But this is what the research, a lot of the prevailing research will say, are the sources of happiness: strong social relationships, physical health and fitness, feelings of competence and control, progress on meaningful goals, committed partner relationships, positive self-esteem and optimism, and clear sense of life's purpose. I think generally, we sort of agree that. I love this one. This is the scientific formula. H equals 0.5 G, 0.1 C, and 0.4. This is genetics. Yeah. There are happy people, and there are less happy people. Would you agree with this? You ever had a sibling? My brother can be a really grumpy guy. He's a lovely guy, but he was born grumpy, and I wasn't. And he used to try and pound my happiness out of me. He's much bigger than I am. But isn't it true that a significant, I was surprised how big it was, that 50% of analysis of variance happiness can be explained by genetics, or your sort of preset amount of happiness that seems to reside in your body. But it's a big bunch. The next one is interesting too. Only 10% is circumstances. In your experience, are rich people much happier than poor people? Are people with bigger cars happier than people with smaller cars? Are people here happier than lesser places? Maybe yes, maybe no. So again, circumstances are relatively small. This is interesting. This is voluntary control. Do you believe that you're influencing your destiny? I think that one is kind of interesting. I think that's quite strongly associated with happiness. So anyway, I don't have any, other than observing this, I just thought I'd share that with you as part of my tribal wisdom. Here is one thing I would encourage you to think about, and you can scribble this if you like, which is in an average week, you're awake for about 100 hours. How do you spend it? So I do a lot of work in asset management. How do you invest your time? So this is basically me in my 30s. And you can put school, for now, and assume this is going to be work. How are you going to invest your time in your happiness for the long haul and the success of your career for the long haul? I'll just make a couple of observations. So this is, let's say it's 100 hours and I'm working 60 hours a week. And sometimes it's 70 and sometimes it's 52. But it's lots, but it's not nutty crazy. It's not 100 and it's not 86. 2 young kids. So that's 20 hours a week. 6 hours each on weekends, couple hours, bedtime stories, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Bit of friends, little bit of community. That's probably, like not-for-profit-y kind of stuff. A little bit on fitness, just to not become ridiculous. And a little bit on teaching and learning, which I want to talk about. This is for me personally. That is nourishing. Guitar lessons. Learning about photography. Teaching yourself Adobe, blah, 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 or Keynote or something. Going to a library, taking a course. Very, very important nutrition. This is a profile of a guy who used to run a big business for me. And I did this yesterday. That's what his profile looked like. He burnt out, late 30s. He could barely go to work and lost a big chunk of the middle part of his career. He's back on his feet now. 75% work, little bit of family, barely any friends, community, fitness, whatever. No. I'll do photography someday. I'm going to take up the guitar. And it's like a diet that's all beef and nothing else. How dull is that? Not everybody would agree. Beef is good. This is sort of what's happening now for me, which is not a 40-hour week because some of it, when I do my board and advisory stuff, I put it over here. So it's still, 55 hours a week, but I just spend it a bit differently. And family, my kids are off at university now. It's down a little bit, but it's still important. Friends are coming up. And these things, this is the big thing for me. I take a guitar lesson every Saturday morning at 8:30. Never was awake at 8:30 in the morning for the first 40 years of my life. As I say, this advisory stuff, learning, it's becoming an important part of this sort of balanced, nutritious diet, if you will. And again, all I'd ask you, especially as you go into the next 5 years of your life, don't look at that one. Don't do that one. Watch out for this. I have people in my company where they're working that extra half hour at work while their friends are doing this. Where the hell is Jennifer? Jennifer doesn't love us anymore. Or what do we chop liver? Not that you guys have ever done that for a group project or anything. You know what happens? Those are tough, tough trade-offs. Same with family, so just kind of the first while it's really hard. Let's stay in the game, find out what winds your watch, and look at the strategic allocation, if you will. That's your investment strategy in you. And I think it's very significant. So 2 final thoughts. Don't go here. There's a better way. There is a better way. And normally, so my final piece of advice is to find a career, whatever the formula, I don't know what the formula for happiness is, but be acutely aware you're going to spend a big chunk of your life doing it. It's going to last for 40 plus years. Gulp. So make it fun, make it nourishing, make it diverse. Think of this notion of having good choices in your 40s, because I think that's really a critical point along the way. And hopefully our paths will cross along the way. There we go. Oh yeah, that's what we got. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you. So, anyway, I just wanted to open up and ask you some questions. And some of this is, it's not digital marketing. It's in a different kind of a context. But anything surprising, especially in the career section? Was that all incredibly obvious to you, and you've been pursuing this with vigor and diligence? Sal, you've been doing this?
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
Anything surprising about your career?
Yeah, no, just, or even just the discussion on the career planning side.
I think you made me think about my time portfolio. It's something I didn't really think of it like that, so it's actually a really good construct to think of it like that.
Right.
We break it up.
Yeah.
And right now, for me, everything kind of merges together. I don't
Yeah.
keep track of how much time I'm spending on something. I think maybe keeping track is probably a good start.
Yeah, and this is a napkin calculation, to be clear. This is not, Excel spreadsheets. But I know when I'm sort of off strategy. I can feel it because I miss one of those components, for like a month or something like that. I go and I need to reinvest I just did a bunch of things with some longtime friends, and literally, you feel re-energized, and it's very important for career and for other stuff along the way. So anyway, so the time, Tricia?
I was surprised when you asked us to sum up our number of Facebook and LinkedIn contacts.
Yeah.
I thought the next thing you were going to say is the importance of our network and building a
Yeah.
big network, because it's something that's been pounded into us in
Yeah.
the last 2 years.
And I think that they are important. I think the people in this room are far more important probably than, or not in this room, but in this program, are very, very significant long-term networking people. But again, it's the real champions. It's sort of this pyramid, which is, LinkedIn is pretty broad. Then Facebook is a little bit closer probably. And then, people here, most of whom are included in groups 1 or 2. But then it's really watch out for the big ones. Those super high influencers, the champions, the advocates. And they sort of knock on the door. And I know my own kids. One is just graduating from Vanderbilt. I got another one over at Cambridge. And both of them, they know. They've got 1 or 2. You can absolutely point to them. And my younger daughter from Vanderbilt just got a job. I said, here's your old man's advice. Just write to the people who would like to hear about that and say, hey, just wanted to let you know, blah, blah, blah happened. And they were so delighted. And it was sort of, so now the next time somebody needs a little boost or someone to advocate them, I think they'll go, oh yeah, I really appreciate that, Tricia just graduated and, in the hunt for a couple of things, just want you to know, like 2 sentences. Just to sort of nurture them, not to like flog yourself and send them newsletters and grades and whatever. Just let them know you're out there and let them know that you appreciate whatever stuff that they've done for you along the way. So that's the difference. It's the 3, 4, 5, whatever. There's a chunk of people here who will be clearly important and influential. Just don't overinterpret, some of the broader social network connections. They're sort of base, but they're not the real thing. The real thing is very powerful, passionate advocating. So, questions in the back? Yeah. Jason? Yeah.
One of the things you said about transportable skills, which actually makes sense in sort of a
Yeah.
fast-moving world, but in the digital space especially, it's even faster. And
Yeah.
you can spend time on something that becomes irrelevant 2 years from now. So
Yeah.
I'm curious sort of how you approach that.
Yeah. And most of the skills that I'm talking to are truly transportable. They're not technology dependent. So it's either you've got a way of looking at a problem, you have a skill set. A lot of people, I think you do a lot of, presenting and group stuff. Like that's a muscle. That's a muscle set, and that's a transportable skill. In our business, the ability to talk to chief marketing officers is a skill that needs to be nurtured and developed. And Arun will know this. We have people, really smart people on our team. I don't put them in front of Arun. Actually, that's not true. I do it once, and then I never do it again. Because they have not developed that muscle set, which has to do with, conciseness of communication, strategic linkage, and other stuff. So it's not technology dependent. It's your way of processing things, and it's more basic capabilities. So that's on the skill set side. And then the relationships, that's again sort of linked to the point I made with Tricia, which is there's, a surprisingly small number of people in the world that you end up doing business with. And so they're precious skills along the way. Yep. Molly?
There seems to be a bit of a conflict in that some of the companies and paths that will develop those skills that you're talking about
Yeah.
are on that highway to hell. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of people immediately out of business school think that we need to go that route before
Yeah.
we get the stairway to heaven. And
Yeah.
even yourself
Yeah.
spoke about being incredibly bored at P&G.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out, when
Yeah.
can you take that leap and do what you're passionate about and make you happy? Do you think that the experience
Yeah.
at P&G
Yeah.
was valuable?
Yeah, for me, absolutely no question. I was not going to spend my time there, and I was genuinely bored and going to be, a philandering coke addict by the age I was 35. I think that's the highway I was on. So wanted to get off that track. So, you know, I think you need to just have a very clear-eyed view of what you're going to, what you expect to contribute, and what you hope to get out of it. And look, it is so unusual for anybody to work in a company for as long as I have. I mean, that's 3 standard deviations off the charts kind of thing. However, you can go into a situation and go, what I'm going to get is this. What I'm not going to get is risk-taking or super digital, blah. So I need to get that sometime. Maybe that's the next chapter. And again, as the brand manager, you go, look, I got solid, I got disciplined, I got this, maybe it's global, whatever. I know, and set your clock, that after a meaningful chapter there, where you do some stuff and take some accountability, have some accomplishments, ding, okay, have the conversation like Tyler had with me. He was going to die from boredom in New York. Like, I was surprised, and he's doing, what a smart thing. And I know it, if he doesn't do it with us, he will do it with somebody else. I'm totally okay with that. So I think you need to go in clear-eyed. You know, what am I going to get from this kind of a thing? And again, it's worthy and often, you know, big, stable, smart company. But remember what you're not getting and look for that, and either get it from that firm in another part of the business or go to another firm and start to build some skills and relationships there. So, you know, there are no perfect companies. And you guys will all know that you go, oh, I wish it was the, you know, a 4-sided triangle. You know, they don't exist. So you need to remember the marathon and do it a bit sequentially in different chapters along the way. Question in the back.
Can you talk about when is the right moment to decide I'm really bad at this?
Right.
and,
Yeah.
And what is the route to take with something that you're really bad at that
Yeah.
still has to be part of?
Yeah. So early on, like, it might be as long as 15 years, I would chop away at my substantial weaknesses. So I used to be, when I left Procter & Gamble, I was petrified to speak in public. It wasn't, petrified is actually the right word. I would be paralyzed from the base of my spine to the top of my head. Sweat jumping from my, Procter & Gamble in those days, you wrote everything. Never presented. Never presented. So let me write that to you, you know, blah, blah, blah. But presenting, so I took it on as a challenge, and I worked and worked and worked at it, and eventually, you know, I do a fair bit of stuff. It's a muscle. And so I developed the muscle over time. And so I'm now, you know, reasonably comfortable. It's still a lot of work and so forth. But you need to just acknowledge it and really take it on. And I do not believe that the passage of time heals weaknesses. I think acts of specific, disciplined work makes your weaknesses go away. Passage of time, almost, you know, they'll grow up and they'll get gravitas to talk to CMOs. No, they won't. They need training to say, here's the first thing that comes out of your mouth. Here's the second thing. If they say this, shut up. If they say this, keep going. It is a skill set. It's not the passage of time. So if you have, you know, analytical thing, you know, public speaking, you know, people have different kinds. Tackle them now, and then there will be a point, and it could be a long time down. It could be 10 or 15 years into your career. But if you shut down on it too early, I think you will narrow those choice. When you get to 40, you got one choice. I'm going to be, you know, this kind of a business leader. I cannot be this kind of a business leader because I'm so weak I can't even cast to my weaknesses. They're glaring. So I would tackle them and do them early, because after a point, you cannot tackle them. So, question here?
You strike me as somebody who's very authentically passionate about what they do. Is it sometimes difficult to be an evangelist for every company and every brand that comes into the door?
Yeah. So the question is, you know, I think the question behind the question is, especially in like a services business, can you be an evangelist for things that you don't necessarily believe in? And it's one of the reasons I've stayed at Ogilvy is, not that we don't have any of those, but one of David Ogilvy's founding philosophies was do first-class business and do it in a first-class way. So we choose that, that's our client list. So it's not our only client list, but, we don't have many that don't sit comfortably on my shoulders. I think, IBM, when we first took them on, was going to be sold for parts. The stock price was $14.63. It was a loser company. It was on the front page of Fortune magazine as a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm not a genius, but that can't be good for the brand. So on that day, and we fired Microsoft and Compaq to take on the IBM business. So that was a statement of, they ain't perfect, but we believe in them. So I think most companies, most good and enduring companies will have a pretty good philosophy where you don't have to do too much of that kind of stuff. There's probably some businesses, I'm trying to think, I'm doing some work for a financial services company right now, and I was worried that they were evil Wall Street. And I took one for the team for the first month or so, and then I actually discovered they're not evil. And so that was reassuring, and I can now, with my chin up, sort of say, this is a good place and a worthy mission and so forth. So I think, we got 4,400 clients in my company. They ain't all perfect. So I think you need to get the big stuff right, work with as many good individuals on your side and their side as possible. And, I'm an optimist, so I actually see the positive side of most situations in people and enterprises. But my company and our culture doesn't put me in a bad position. It's very, very rare that happens. So part of it is choose a culture that aligns itself with pretty good opportunities. Once again, you're going to spend 50-60% of your life doing, not for that company, but work. So you need some pretty good alignment along the way. So, other questions? Ryan?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to bridge the two parts of your
Yeah.
talk today. You talked about managing our own brand as
Yeah.
we go into careers, but you also talked about managing a brand in a digital age.
Yeah.
So I wanted just to get your opinion on how that framework, the 4E framework,
Right.
would apply to
Yeah.
A career going
Interesting.
forward. The internet doesn't forget.
Well, let's do this real time. So experience means that your product, let's say that your product shows up on your resume. Okay, let's say that your CV, that's your skill sets, places you went to school. Let's say that that's no longer sufficient to differentiate yourself. In fact, that's true at college admissions, as we know. You need other stuff. So make the experience of you, the physical experience, maybe the social media experience, how you engage with people, make it a little bit better than someone with equal qualifications. Okay, I think that's true. There are geniuses I will not hire because they're too much of a jerk to deal with. And in our business, you can tolerate some. Too many, you just send them home. And what? I wish I could work with them, but I can't. So make your experience, the non-factual experience, engaging, easy to do business with, collaborative, etc. On the every place side, I do think you need to think of, let's say from a career standpoint, the people who are shopping for people like you in a career, where do they look? Well, they do look on LinkedIn. They definitely do. They also will all do Google searches of your name. They will go on your Facebook page. Whether you want it or not, they'll find a way. So you are expressed. Maybe you've written a paper. Maybe you've got a blog. Maybe you've contributed to some research here or elsewhere. So again, I think most importantly, let's say in the career sense, it's those employers and marketing people and HR people, where do they shop to evaluate candidates? And I think hard about, and it's not just, how fun it is to go to their website, with 9 trillion other people sifting through the morass. So I would think of where they're going to shop. There is a place where LinkedIn, I think, is very good, which you may have discovered. So you take 3 words. Let's say you want to go into marketing, and on your list of great places to go is American Express. So you type in LinkedIn, marketing, American Express, and Yale. And that gives you a prospect list. And then you work your ass off. Dear Brian, my name is Ryan. I am a senior at da-da-da-da, and you work for a company I really respect. In fact, I respect it so much, I like to go there and work there. Can we do a 5-minute phone call? This is how my daughter, Allison, from Vanderbilt, got her job at IBM. I know 5 million people at IBM. This is where she used LinkedIn, just to get a little, just who do I talk to, because you never know who to talk to. So that's one place I would use LinkedIn and social media. So that's the every place. The exchange dimension has to do with, what do they want from you, and so it's not just what's my salary. The exchange one in the early part of a career, a bit harder. It's hard for me to express it. The final one, which is evangelism, rather than sending them 85 emails and beating them over the head, what's another way of engaging them? Maybe you did a really cool, a not-for-profit thing, a stand-up comedy thing, your band played, send them a 1-minute YouTube video. Just again, so it's engagement, not violent self-promotion. It's not just another email. I am really interested in your firm. That's the 12,000th one that they got today. So I'm just trying real time to apply it. So if any of that is helpful, just some of the things I'd think about along the lines. Yeah, question here?
Well, and following,
Yeah.
going on the same topic,
Yeah.
I would mention that you have this one page and talk about your life and
Right. Yeah.
what would the contents be if you've done this?
Right. Right. This is me as an employer now, okay? And the thing I did with Arun was some things that he had done. I just made a story around it and took, 400 pages of information and put it down on one. In the context of a CV, first and foremost, I think you need to be respectfully concise. Make every word count. Most things I see are too long. The ones that I see. So I think there is the content, and if you have a bit of a story, put a bit of a story in a cover note. What's the most interesting thing? So here's my resume. Here's one thing I'd like you to also know about me. I started a company when I was 15 years old, and we sold, I did this. I am absolutely passionate about curing the world of breast cancer, and here's a little thing I did last week to prove it. But, content rich, make every word count, and a little bit of story appeal, again, so you're not a product, you're an experience. And then try and get one person through LinkedIn or somewhere else to get your resume so that you get considered. That'd be my best advice. Question in the back?
The first half of your presentation you spoke about navigation.
Yeah.
Customers' journey.
Yeah.
So today you can possibly raise awareness to more brands.
Yep.
You can perform watch videos on YouTube, reviews. You can possibly feel the product physically in the store.
Yeah.
You come home and place the online order, right?
Yeah.
So how do you measure which strategy is actually working? Whether it's the digital one, whether it's promotion which is working.
This is why you guys are going to have jobs. You're going to figure it out. It is, yeah, it is tremendously challenging. So what we do is at least we start with what is the customer journey? What are we currently investing at each major touch point and phase of the journey? And trying as best we can to do attribution of which things matter. But literally, it comes back to my chef analogy, which is, I could tell you there's paprika, ginger, and this, but all you care is whether it tastes good or not. So whether I take the paprika up 4% or down it still matters to marketers at big scale, does the dish satisfy the customer? So we're trying as an industry and as a company to sort out the different stages, deconstruct. Some of them are easy to optimize. Some of the digital ones, you know, the design of your e-commerce website, et cetera. But many of them, you have to look more holistically. There's still leaps of faith in how to do that. But I think your generation will figure it out much more scientifically. It's still pretty crude right now. Still
Okay,
pretty crude.
time for one last question.
Yep. From Ning?
I'm particularly interested in your advice of passing the torch.
Yes.
I think this is continuous process along with our personal development.
Yes.
So my question is, what is your criteria when you select a successor? Will your criteria change for different levels? For
Yes.
example, project leader compared to a future CEO.
Yeah. So the question is about succession and what criteria. So it's very, the skill sets are very individual, but one thing I have at the core is a trust dimension. If I was in a battle, would I have this person standing beside me? And if the answer is yes, they're eligible to continue the conversation on skill sets and criteria. And if the answer is no, you stop the conversation. So one thing to always look for as you ascend, who's my number two? Who's my number two? Is your number two is your pass to have another job. So my number two right now is a fantastic German guy who came with $1,000 in his pocket and 3 kids from Berlin 15 years ago. And I would go to battle with this man. And so he is eligible to be my successor, but he is just abundant on the trust dimension. So I'm not positive that he's the one, but whoever other candidates, they have to have the same kind of trust at the core. So in succession planning, that to me is the big one, and then you customize the skill sets around that. Does that make sense? Great. So thank you all very much. I know you'll be running off to do your strategic investment portfolios, but anyway, a lot of fun for me. Hopefully you got some thoughts from that.